Hey everybody, I'm back. And that background noise you hear is my dog Sunny slurping up a ton of water. So that, you know what that means? A couple of trips outside wake me up in the middle of the night to go pee. So, Captain America, I love him. I love Daredevil too. So, this episode is going to cover the second half of the 70s with Captain America and how it had some high highs and low lows. When Cap came back in his own title in 1968, the first year was by Kirby and Lee, and then Steranko did several issues, and then Stan stayed on board. He worked with John Buscema, John Romita, Gene Colan, and it was kind of aimless. Like the Falcon was created, which was great in the story where the island of the exiles, and but he disappeared for a while. But he came back less than a year later, and they started hanging out together more to the point where it was Captain America and the Falcon in the title. And John Romita came on for about half a year, and it was sensational with the Grey Gargoyle and Hydra and everything. And then they left, and he had Sal Buscema covered up, doing what he does. He picks up and just, through his osmosis or something. Sal always had this magic of taking any book, no matter how difficult, and just know how to draw the characters. He didn't have to do, it wasn't any painstaking research. He just had that mindset. So Kirby came along after Englehart. There was sort of a half year where it was a mess. Englehart left not under good conditions. Long story. Then there was fill-in writers: Tony Isabella, John Warner. So Jack Kirby came along for 2 years, and the first year was Mad Bomb, which was exceptional. It was like a return to past glory. But the second year, it really kind of slowed to a halt, and for a character that's built for action, it was really awkward. Like, they might be a splash or two panels in an issue where he's doing something, and a lot of it was at this time Kirby loved to do big long captions, huge paragraphs upon paragraphs each panel, and so and it was good, but sometimes it just kind of stopped. I stopped for a while, and then I came back right in time for Arnim Zola and Red Skull and all that stuff. But then, after that ended, by the way, I enjoy all that Kirby stuff now as an adult. I mean, looking back on it as a kid, I was completely turned off. It made me feel like I was a kid being yelled at by a guy, who had lived through World War II. It's like, I had no basis in understanding how severe that would affect anybody, and it gave Kirby a very wide understanding of the worldview he had. Why am I talking about Kirby? 2 years. It turns out great. I love it now that I'm seeing it through older eyes, much older eyes. Well, after he was done with his contract, he went. Sal Buscema returned. Good old Sal. And he was working with first Steve Gerber, and then and Roger McKenzie. There was somebody else in there, I think. Don Glut. Yeah. They were fun. It was kind of up and down, but when Roger McKenzie came on board, he really added some stability to the book, and it made it more accessible and consistent. And good old Sal was always there. I can't think of any artist today that could just arbitrarily draw like the entire new X-Men in Marvel, what was it, Team Up Annual #1, stuff like that. So we get in the aftermath of this big crossover with the Hulk. Falcon's going to go on his own. He had been co-headlining for years. Steve Englehart came along after. I'm jumping ahead before this. Steve Englehart came on board after the John Romita issues with Stan, and he really breathed new life to the book. And he and Sal Buscema really integrated Falcon's life in Harlem as a social worker and Captain America, just palled around with him, and also it was hard to explain. They were like two different worlds, but they it was very educational without hammering you with information, and it was pretty cool. It was really cool, and they were a solid team for years, and great stuff. I'm kind of over explaining it, so this is just a flashback. Cap doesn't know what to do, so he goes out, but there's this hate group starting all kinds of crap. And what's funny is, after all this time, I don't know what Roger was thinking, but Cap became a cop in issue 139, and it lasted like maybe a year, maybe a little more, and but all of a sudden, after all these years, he decides to put on his uniform, and it makes no sense because they're just acting like he's late, and it's like, I'm surprised he's still around. But anyway, the commissioner sort of knows what's going on. He goes, "May your courage prevail where mine has failed." So he kind of senses that he wasn't just streaking around. So, and also Cap was covered. This was also something that was covered with Captain America and Falcon. It was not only social issues, but stuff like drugs and inner city problems. And I tell you what, I like that color effect on Morgan. I loved Morgan. He was real. He was the mobster of, I think it was, I don't know if it was Brooklyn or something, but it was very, very cool. Don Perlin on the inks, amazing stuff. So he's between, two forces here. Beautiful stuff. See, because of the Cap gets hypnotized by Dr. Faustus, and because the internet and algorithms are so stupid, I had to cover that symbol, and I'm sure you know what it is. But Daredevil comes along, and I always like Daredevil showing up. What's interesting is Jack Abel is inking this, and he has such a flat style by contrast, but it's kind of, I still like it. Dr. Faustus, who was a late Kirby creation. Now this is really cool. This is a rare thing where Michael Fleischer filled in on the script, and I don't know, just had to get out or something. I know it wasn't Sal being late or Don, because they could do multiple books on a month. So Cap is falling, and what's really cool about this is that this is very much like a Kirby thing. He did this. Kirby did like a panels like this in a Tales of Suspense issue that I can't recall, but Sal's not copying it by any means. He's just thinking in ways of like, well, he's falling. Maybe he thought of it, I don't know, but he made it his own. Just a few inches to catch the helicarrier. And with one of my favorite panels of all time, he misses. No! But look at that. 2/3 of that page is devoted to this big ass blimp. It wasn't a helicarrier, and he just missed it by inches. And the reason that Sal blew that up really gives you the feeling of hopelessness, at least for the moment. I love that panel. Whoa! I didn't cover all those things up, but I will now. Mark Evanier is writing the story. It's a one-off, The Falcon. It's good. It kind of made me hope there would be more, but this might have been, who knows, a fill-in issue for Captain America or something that was needed later. Either way, it's a great story. And after the whatever this hate group is called, Cap has a press conference, and there's that symbol I'm hiding up. That cover is really sensational. I think I don't know if it's Keith Pollard. He's been doing a lot of the covers lately, but he's just really, really kind of crushed by the whole situation and how terrible things had become. What a powder keg. This whole, it was like some kind of national force, they called themselves. So Cap comes into one of those news vans, and he wasn't sure where Sharon Carter was, and she was possessed or hypnotized by Dr. Faustus, and he's watching her burn. It's Sharon. The color palette, perfect. And later on, when Mark Waid and Ron Garney brought back Sharon, I really did not like that. I hated that because this is such a great moment in history, and then 20 years later, she comes back, and then she's all pissed off because Cap wasn't looking out for her, and it's like, well, he just saw her French fried. It's like, why would you think she's still out there? So he decides he's going to be a commercial artist. He's reinventing himself. I love the zipatone on that jacket, and he finds a new place, a brownstone, and a building where all the neighbors know each other, and this woman, Mrs. Kappelbaum, she was a prisoner in World War II in Germany, and she was sharing her story about Captain America, which was on that cover I had shown you before. I know I'm going slow. I gotta keep going. Well, anyway, Sal was gone. Fred Kita stepped in with Don Perlin. Made a real nice team, I thought. So, and Fred Kita also did like one of the best what ifs ever. It was what if Dr. Doom was a hero. Okay, great cover there. That's Sal, and I don't know who inked that. I don't know if it's Bob Wyacek or if it's... So, okay, Alan Kupperberg is doing... Paul Kupperberg, his brother, is plotting this. Everything else is by Alan Kupperberg. Now, Alan Kupperberg is someone that I've known as Captain Fill-In. Like, he for the longest time, he never had his own title. He would just do fill-in issues until the last year of the Invaders, and it just wasn't strong. And I really feel that he became that guy that Marvel would crank out, or they would grab at the last minute and say, "Hey, we need this by this time next Monday," because I've been that guy. It's so his stuff was always a little. It's good here, but sometimes it's a little off. I can't quite describe it adequately, but it was still a joyful storytelling. Now we go to Frank Springer and Pablo Marcos. Now Mike W. Barr writer. Frank Springer was one of those guys, just like Frank Robbins, who was steeped in the Steve Canyon, Milton Caniff style, and they did that stuff for newspaper strips, and then they got hired in the mid-'70s by Marvel, and it just didn't match. It was hard to constrain yourself from it, or go from an adventure strip where you have X amount of panels to full-page splash, super sensational, the Marvel way, aka the Kirby way. So it's very... It's strong in places, but there's other places where it's not so strong. So the next issue is another fill-in. Stephen Grant, good writer. And you got Joe Sinnott inking Don Perlin this time. So you see what's going on here. It's like musical chairs. This is pretty cool. It's really weird. It's really weird. What Joe Sinnott inks there is just, yes, indeedy. But it's an android. I'm kind of surprised. Later on, it was an Avengers issue with it was a solo issue, the Beast, that had this character who it was much more of a psychological storyline, just like psychobabble sort of thing. So, look at it. Perez cover. Oh my God, that's gonna be great. This is so. Oh, okay. Roger McKenzie comes on, full time. Rich Buckler, Don Perlin. Buckler's doing a ton of Kirby swipes, which is fun, You can see the angle with Kirby, you know what this is. Like, I can name a lot of these. That's like Tales of Suspense, 80, 80, that too. Just lots of stuff. But, it was okay. I kind of liked the Kirby-esque, stuff from the old days. At least I did more so then. Now, another artist, Tom Sutton. I love Tom Sutton. although he's not the Marvel style kind of guy. If they had something like Vertigo comics back in the day from DC, he would have fit that perfectly. And Tom Sutton's been everywhere, so it's just there's no consistency, and it's probably hard for Roger because he didn't know who was going to draw the next issue, because now we had Carmen Infantino, and Joe Rubenstein is doing an amazing job on the inks. Really, really nice stuff. So, and it's a great story. Now we got another Perez cover, and this time it's by Peter Gillis and Jerry Bingham. See where I'm going with this? This is crazy. There's no, I mean, I bought Captain America strictly because I loved Captain America, but some of these issues I was kind of shrugging. I'm like, well, maybe the next issue will be better, and it just kept playing musical chairs. And this is early Jerry Bingham, and I really dig it. I mean, he right out of the nest, he was doing cool stuff. And this is the guy from Spider-Man. I think it was 36 or 38. From Steve Ditko. It was one-off called A Guy Called Joe, and it was some guy who was like a schlub, and I think he was a boxer or wrestler, and his days were over. He wanted to prove that he wasn't a loser anymore, and he somehow got this exoskeleton and made him stronger, and supposedly whatever, it stopped working at the end of that issue, but apparently it didn't. But I was kind of digging that. I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember that character. Great stuff. Okay, well, how many artists have we had? Whoop. Sorry, everybody. Why am I whispering? See, pencilers. That's crazy. That's just crazy. And then we were rescued for a time by Roger Stern and John Byrne, old friends from the CPL gang, the Contemporary Pictorial Literature fanzine that came out in the early 70s that included both of them and Bob Layton as well, and there's John Duffy, I think, also. So we got this. There was such a promise of greatness, and it is great. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've reread these 8 issues because they're just seamless. There's so much going on, and it's so, Rubenstein's inking, really, really beautiful stuff. I mean, it made it a must-read book. I was already reading it, but this brought a lot of, Byrne was, he was always a big help on this kind of stuff. Patrick the Leaper and Mr. Hyde. I love when Marvel mixes and matches, because Mr. Hyde was teamed up with the Scorpion, like in issue 150 or so, and then he was usually with the Cobra, but that's another thing. So, I'm just going to zip through this. Really great stuff. Patrick the Leaper. All this great stuff. This actually kind of, this actually kind of looks like Byrne. Needless to say, it's genius. I love all his stuff. And this annual, no, it's an issue, see? It is a fill-in issue. And I love it because it's Gene Colan with Dave Simons, who is, there's a whole bunch of different inkers, that's right. Simons, Milgram, and Giacoya inkers. And I just loved it because I love anything Colan, even though at this point his anatomy was kind of really overly exaggerated, but it was still fun. It still had a vibrancy to it. That's what I like. So that's beautiful there. Try to get to the one that I know is definitely Giacoya towards the end here. That's Giacoya right there. He's got that real sharp Ramita kind of style. So, okay, what happened is Stern and Byrne left because Jim Shooter just had a whim to say no more continued stories. We're only going to do one-issue stories, and they had a Red Skull story started up, and they stopped it because it was going to be multi-part. Let me show you the very back here. This is what would have been. This is what would have been, issue 256. They only got 5 issues into it, and like I said, Shooter decided, and then like a month later he rescinded that. So it was kind of Shooter was an interesting guy, good and bad. Now, this I think to be the lowest point of Cap because Lee Elias, he's another guy. He's an old school comic strip adventure artist, and working in the Marvel the style, it's so forced and it's ugly. And it's not that his work is ugly. It's just to make somebody who's spent decades not drawing audacious supervillains in your face and superheroes. It's such a clumsy fit. It just adventure strips were his strength, and so this is just and like the Hulk. It's like he could tell he's trying, but it's not really. It's hard to not make the Hulk interesting, and apparently he, unfortunately, couldn't get around it. Mike Zeck, first art by Zeck, I think, on Captain America. It is another fill-in issue by Chris Claremont, David McElhaney. That was a plot, script assist, and then David McElhaney, Mike Zeck. Who's the anchor on this thing? I guess they skipped it. Because John Beatty would go on to be the regular anchor. And this sort of, I don't know, it's hard to tell. But I was just like, wow, this is really cool stuff. Too bad it's a fill-in. That was what was going on in my mind. I'm like, oh, yeah, next issue will be some crappy issue. Well, then Doc Ock, again, mixing and matching. I love that. Even before Acts of Vengeance in 1989 or so, even before that, they would occasionally mix and match. I love it. And there's this Zeck guy again. And Jim Shooter's in the plot. The title, he's editor-in-chief. David McElhaney is the script. So I'm like, wow, how about that? But since the writer had already changed, I thought, oh, well, it's just another fill-in issue by the same guy. And this did not disprove my theory, because this is a fill-in issue. And it's, let's see, written by Al Milgrom and inked, and it's got funny credits, so Alan Kupperberg did the pencils. And but here's what I mean about awkward poses that Kupperberg would do. And, I'm like, So I was still enjoying Cap, but it's just like, yeah, whatever. This was like the mission statement originally for Captain America that came out the first issue that Roger Stern, John Byrne, and Joe Rubinstein had done. So unfortunately only lasted 8 issues, and we were back into fill-in hell. I mean, if I wasn't such a deep in my blood Marvel zombie, I probably would have dropped the title a long time ago. And let me fiddle with my camera for a second there. There we go, that's better. So I was kind of like, And what's weird is this era, in the second half of the 70s, it just got really bad. Like all the titles, Spider-Man became incredibly mediocre, as did the Fantastic Four. Just there was just a lot of uninspired stuff, and it would kind of go, and sales were hurting because the books were going from 25 cents to 30 cents and 35, then 45, and then I think they got to 50. I'm not sure, but here we go. Nomad, I covered him on another episode on this channel, and it is J.M.DeMatteis, Mike Zeck, Quick Draw Studios inker, meaning it's a jam issue on the inks, and Steve Rogers is drunk and singing with his neighbor, and Sam Wilson, the Falcon. And, they're just kind of having a good time. But they see a mugging, of course. So, and Cap actually slips, as does the Falcon. And he says to himself, what was it? He's like, that's the last time I allowed that much alcohol in my system. And I don't think he had a drink since then. The Ameridroid, who was created by, I think, Don Glut or Steve Gerber and Sal Buscema after the second Kirby run. And, gee, this guy with the cigarette holder, who could that be? How many other people have cigarette holders besides Dr. Faustus? And I don't think he merits a return so soon. So I'm like, all right. Same writer, same artist, same bunch of inkers. That's a very odd. I don't know who inked that, but that's not very Zeck-like. That's kind of counterproductive. But back then, everybody lived in New York City, so if you wanted to work at Marvel DC, you had to move to New York City. And so there were a lot of artists there, and they'd have an issue. It's like, hey, it's running late. Here, take a couple pages. You want a page here? Like that. Wow. It's still cool on its own, but it's not Zeck. It totally lost the Zeck feel to it. But then we get, finally, the Red Skull. And I'm covering up that you-know-what symbol just because I don't want the algorithm to bite me in the ass. Doesn't matter if I don't know. There's so many people. It's like with YouTube, you just have to dodge stupid things or the algorithm will shut you down. And it's like, even if you're not praising it, if you're condemning it, that just pisses me off. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, excellent stuff going on. And then, surprise, after 3 issues of the same creative team, whoa, they're back. They might be around for a while, these guys. So, John Beatty hasn't joined as inker yet, and he becomes the inker for Zeck. Great story, though. It's got the X-Men, but it's actually like a dream sequence. Manual, again with Gene Cole and Dave Simons. And like I said, the anatomy is so wonky and such. But I just love it. It's like, to me, Gene Colan can get away with it. Nobody else can. Okay, move along. Okay. That's beautiful. I love that. The Sultan. And it is by David Anthony Kraft is doing these 2 issues, and Mike Zeck and John Beatty finally united. So this is more like a strict action story with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury and Spider-Man. I love their Spider-Man. I love the eyes. I love the bold lines. It's really nice. So I'm digging it. I'm like, wow. Got a steady art team here. And then we're back with DeMatteis, Zeck, Beatty. Finally, yes. Except for that 8-issue blip of wonderment, which was Roger Stern and John Byrne, Joe Rubinstein, we have a steady art team, writing team, and it's great stuff. To me, it totally recovered the book. We couldn't have Stern and Byrne back, but this was not only the next, just, almost as good, it became just as good. So this really got exciting. When I had, I was buying comics, I had a whole bunch of issues of them. Pretty much a lot of the major titles. And, I had a pile, and Cap was at the bottom for a long time, and now this was at the top. This issue crosses over with Defenders. Where'd it go? Yeah. And crossover with Defenders 105. So then, whoop. Okay. Doodly-doo-doo. Sorry, I didn't come fully prepared. Shame on me. There. And here we go. We get a Team Supreme. and they're still doing their magic, and they haven't even started yet. They got so much cool shit going on. This reprints a few of those issues that were in the Masterworks. The Epic Collection sort of overlap at times, but I really wasn't a fan of that era. So Team America shows up right before the regular series. Team America, it was a toy line originally intended to be Evel Knievel toys. He already had his toys in 1976, but he was, and he was really like this national hero. People would love to see him jump like 18 buses and all that, and half the time he broke his collarbone and, the neck bone and all that. But then he got arrested for wife beating, and his stock dropped completely. And they had these toys they were planning to come out later on, like smaller toys, and they repainted them and created Team America. And the only reason this sort of works is because Cap has a custom-made motorcycle that kind of fits in. And yep, here we go. Same creative team. Shocking. So I knew the book was back. The Marauder was kind of cool. And there's an old friend of Steve's from way back when, except he's aged and Steve hasn't. We've seen that sort of situation many a times. So, really, really good stuff. And then there's a fill-in issue, and I was like, whoa, by David Kraft and Alan Kupperberg and John Beatty on the inks. And it's funny because Bernie Rosenthal is excited about watching pro wrestling, and she had shown no interest in it before or after, but it was for the plot device. Where this one guy kills somebody in the ring. It was still kind of fun. Wow. Super badass. And check out how the rain... Beatty took a tip from Joe Rubinstein, where Joe Rubinstein inked that issue with Carmen Infantino, and the first few pages were had rain coming down heavy. So there's not only lines, there's like little splats here and there with a toothbrush. And but you never use the same toothbrush when you're flicking ink that you did when you brush your teeth. That would be bad. Just so first appearance of Vermin, it's so creepy. He's just like, he's never faced someone like that. So savage. And there we go. Oh, David Anthony Kraft is back. I guess he's a Nick Fury expert. Because he did the one with Nick Fury and Spider-Man. How about that? Ah, love it. Love the lighting. And you got the old Howlers acting like young Howlers, taking on Baron Strucker and Hydra. I haven't traded these in I haven't upgraded these to Marvel Masterworks because, I don't want to go broke. It's just after a while, you just kind of... And these Epic collections are excellent. And I probably told you this. Whoop, I gave it away. If you know the Howling Commandos, you know that. This is a annual with Ron Wilson and Vince Colletta. It's, brown covers. We need more brown covers. I totally love that. And he steps into the hologram in the alleyway that has a brick wall on the other side, so nobody knows that it's a secret entrance to S.H.I.E.L.D. in New York City. And he first meets Gail Runsiter, who she falls in love with Cap. He's just the greatest, And she's all nervous like a school child. Yeah, there, Gail. Let's not get carried away. And later on, she does. She almost seduces him in an issue of Marvel Team Up. Went real fast. So you got Baron Zemo, the son of Baron Zemo, that is. They brought him back. He was briefly a character called Phoenix, came out in 168. This is a backup strip where Sam Wilson, he had a complicated background. He was like a street hustler nicknamed Snap Wilson. And then during the Red Skull appearance where Falcon first met Cap, the Red Skull took away that the negative part of Sam Wilson and kept the good half. So it was like, how can I put it? Basically, his old personality comes back. He snaps out of it, and he's back to being Snap Wilson for a while. So he's really, yeah, here, say, the Cosmic Cube and all that. And what happened was the Red Skull was using the Cosmic Cube. I know that's Cap, but he switched bodies with Cap. The Skull did. He, believe it or not, he played the long ball. He wanted him to be like a double agent, but it wouldn't be revealed until years later. It's just crazy how it happened. So Sam's kind of dealing with his past, his youthful past, and his recent past. This is a nod to a Batman story that Neil Adams drew with Raja Ghul, where Batman's in the same pose, and I think it's Raja Ghul. Raja Ghul sounds like a pasta dish. Raja Ghul. And a little pasta vazul on top of that. Man, I love pasta vazul. I have to show you my recipe for that. Okay, yep, you got the DeMatteis, Zeck, Beatty. Just great stuff every month. It's like Cap was just a must-read again for the first time since the torturously short era of started Byrne. So, cool stuff, huh? And then later on, I also did an episode on the Nomad. There's like a whole bunch of episodes that I'm cross-referencing here. Constrictor, badass character, designed by John Romita, Sr. And you get the Viper. And that's the Nomad who was the Bucky from the 50s who got deprogrammed. Ah, man. Oh, that's what it's all about. Wow. There's that Viper, created by Jim Steranko. And there's another epic, there's just like a two-issue fill-in, and then it goes into the storyline with Deathlock. And really exceptional. I was just like, yes, yes, yes. Now, after Zeck left, there was a guy named Paul Neary who wasn't really that sensational, but he could tell a great story. And Mark Grunwald came on. Mike Carlin did 6 issues after DeMatteis left with issue 300. Originally, J.M.DeMatteis wanted... it's a long story. He had a different idea for where the book would go after issue 300. And so Mike Carlin did 6 issues, then Mark Grunwald would do 100 issues, and Paul Neary was just, how would you put it? He was a solid draftsman. But he wasn't sexy, But he was great at working at Mark Grunwald's elaborate plots. So anyway, I'm getting off point here. But yeah, I tell you what, they saved one of my favorite comics from mediocrity. I was just like surrendering myself, and this was just the era. It's like the second half of the 70s sucked, and love him or hate him, Jim Shooter, he straightened things out. He was like, enough of this, enough of this nonsense. Let's get consistent people on the book. Let's get, we'll let Walt Simonson wild on Thor. We'll let Byrne do FF and go wild on that. And there was a lot of that stuff going on. A lot of excitement in the early to mid 80s. To me, though, with Secret Wars, that's when the story, Marvel kind of jumped the shark for me. The first half was good, but okay, I'm getting way off base. But tell me what you think. I mean, I'm not comparing DeMatteis and Zeck to Stern and Byrne, but I just wanted to know what you thought. Like, were you, like me, disgusted with the fill-ins, but still hung in there because you were collecting the book and you liked the character, or did you drop off the book for a while because you had a better part of a year between creators where there was no consistency? So let me know what you think if you're a long-time reader or if you're new to this some of this stuff. It's all good, and I totally did Cap. One of my maybe because I really got the comics around '74, and the bicentennial celebration was 1976, and you saw Cap on a lot of merchandise you usually see him on. Nothing like today, where you got lots of merch. You spoiled young men, women. So yeah, that's it. And whoop, you okay, little baby? Okay. So just great stuff. Great stuff. Anyway, yeah. When did you first buy Cap? When, were you way after these eras, and were you? Just tell me what you think. And what was your favorite work? And if you didn't like a certain era, you could share that too. So I'm not demanding anybody follow my tastes exactly. I'm just here to have conversation, fun, and you know what? Thank you for watching. It just means the world to me. There's so many options out there on YouTube, and the fact that you decided to spend 3/4 of an hour with me, it just means the world. It really does. And I don't monetize my YouTube channel. I just want it to be something I would like to see. So, as a fanboy geek, deep in my bones, still. That's all I gotta say. And it's Sunday night on the 7th of September, and I hope you have a good week, okay? And be careful and be good to each other, okay?